Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. I don't know if you guys caught this moment, but roughly 2 weeks ago, Scott Bessent was asked this question on the House floor.
Who was the president? And who has been the president since January 20th, 2025?
Donald J. Trump.
Okay. And who was the president in 2024?
One believes President Biden.
One believes? You one of those non-believers that the election, the American people didn't vote?
I am not.
You're not? You said one believes? Do you believe in the Constitution of the United States? And it should be abided
I believe in the Constitution of the United States.
So you believe in it without any second thought?
Who was president in 2024? And he said, one believes President Biden. And that caused such an uproar, passionate outrage from the left. How dare you question that? And obviously the suggestion is here that it's crazy or somehow disrespectful to claim that Joe Biden wasn't actually in charge. Yeah, well, spare me the sanctimony. I don't get where all the outrage is really coming from, because it's clear as day that he was not president. He was simply the puppet that they paraded in front of the camera. And that is becoming increasingly apparent, especially with the recent release of the Robert Hur interview. But now following that interview, things are getting a little bit interesting here, as Joe Biden's auto pen scandal is now coming back to the forefront, as James Comer is now launching an official investigation into the matter. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on here. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so take a look at this Fox News segment right over here.
You are going and looking at who is controlling this auto pen, because Joe Biden, I mean, he's demonstrating that he doesn't have all the cognitive capabilities they had. That interview was from 2023.
That's hard evidence early in President Biden's term as president. It clearly shows that he was in significant mental decline. It questions who was actually making the decisions. So what we found is not just with the pardons he issued, but many of the executive orders that the courts are now using to Trump-proof many of the executive orders that President Trump is trying to implement to make government more efficient. Many of these executive orders, as well as the pardons of Biden's entire family as a result of our investigation, these were all signed with the auto pen. And clearly from that interview, which was many, many months prior to the heavy use of the auto pen, Joe Biden wasn't capable of making decisions. He wasn't coherent. We think we've identified who the staffers are. Jason, you all have done great work with that over at Heritage Oversight. We're going to bring everyone that we believe was involved in any role in the use of the auto pen. We're going to invite them to come in for a transcribed interview. If they want, then they will receive a subpoena and they will have a full-blown deposition. But we want to find out who was actually making the decisions in the White House during the last 9 months of the Biden administration when he was clearly in mental decline. Who made those decisions? Somebody has to give the authority to use the auto pen. Obviously, Joe Biden wasn't the one that stuck the papers. There's no paper trail. There's no evidence that we found that person was Joe Biden. So we're looking at the senior officials, and don't rule out Hunter Biden. He spent a lot of time in the Oval Office in the last 3 months. We know that from press accounts and from sources that were involved in the inner workings of the White House then.
You know, at first the whole auto pen issue was kind of a meme. And I'm not saying that I thought it was a meme, but just, you know, the perception of the issue, it seemed kind of like a thing that Donald Trump was ranting about on Truth Social, but in the end wasn't really going to amount to much, just because it really wasn't making that much noise. But after the release of the Robert Hur tape, the auto pen scandal is now 1,000 times worse. We're talking about a president in clear, full-blown cognitive decline. He couldn't remember the year he left office. He can't remember basic facts about his life. And now we're supposed to believe that that guy not only knew everything that he was signing, but consciously also understood every bill and every pardon that was being signed with the auto pen signature? It's impossible to believe that. Joe Biden obviously wasn't calling the shots. He wasn't reading the documents. He wasn't reading the bills. And he sure as hell wasn't personally reviewing pardon requests. He was a prop, and somebody behind the scenes was operating the machine. And who could that be? Well, I don't know.
People would ask me, knowing what you know now, do you wish like you had a third term? And I used to say, you know what, if I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man, or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony. I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, obviously somebody was behind the scenes, whether it was Obama or somebody else, some sort of deep state figure was actually in charge. And we don't know who that is, and that's kind of the problem. Who really was president? Was it Joe Biden? I don't know. And now it raises the question, who was truly signing these documents? Now, if you listen to the leftist media, they'll tell you, but other presidents used the auto pen too. And sure, that's true, but for what? Holiday letters? The odd ceremonial stuff here and there? What president used the auto pen to the degree that the Biden administration did? For everything, from these controversial pardons to major executive actions. You know, Trump has already addressed this talking point as well. He admitted that he has used the auto pen before, but only sparingly, and never for anything critical. But the scale of Biden's auto pen use is off the charts. And now paired with the Robert Hur interview being released, it's impossible to ignore why. He couldn't do the job, and his staff knew that. And they lied about it for years. They covered it up. And the scandal here is that the country was being governed by people who were never even on the ballot. This issue has got to make it to the Supreme Court. And for a couple reasons, not just the auto pen issue, but the fact that Biden issued these wide net preemptive pardons, giving connected individuals pardons for crimes they may have committed, not for actual charges that they were found guilty of. You know, in my view, these pardons are garbage. They're totally illegitimate. You've got Hunter Biden, Fauci, Mark Milley, all the deep state favorites under the sun, walking free and now supposedly immune and exempt from investigation. And all of these pardons rubber stamped by a president who didn't know what the hell was going on and didn't even actually sign them. One of his staffers did with the auto pen machine. You can't overstate how insane this is. Those pardons are invalid and should obviously be tossed in the trash. If a president pardons someone, it's supposed to be a deliberate, thoughtful act, and he's supposed to be pardoning somebody who was found guilty of a crime, clearing the rap sheet. This whole thing stinks to the high heavens, and obviously there's some sort of deep state cabal here that was really in charge, and they took advantage of that shield, that Biden shield, the dementia shield, let's call it, to use these pardons to block future accountability of their actions. Now the Hunter Biden investigation is stalled. Anthony Fauci gets to retire with his tens upon tens of millions of dollars that he made through the pandemic. Mark Milley gets to pretend as if he didn't engage in treasonous actions, and Adam Schiff gets away with his endless corruption. They're all fully protected. It's an absolute outrage, and it's again totally illegitimate because Joe Biden not only didn't even sign the documents, but didn't even know what the hell was going on, obviously. Joe Biden wasn't the president, folks. Joe Biden was the puppet. And the auto pen scandal, mixed with the Robert Hur interview, essentially proves it. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.